Hi, I'm Erin. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Erin.
Thank you so much, Lupita, for thinking of me. I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought this was just like a normal speakers meeting, and I'm standing at a podium. Yeah, I didn't start drinking until I was 19, and I was terrified of being an alcoholic because I know my parents were alcoholics. My brother, I got to see. I saw a struggle with heroin addiction, and I knew that it was in my blood, and so I was terrified. And but it still was in me. So I had my first signs of having a problem with drinking where I started to experience blackouts. And it was just this inability to stop once I started. And I wanted to say that I had control over it. And, there were times where it was good, but there were times when it was bad. And honestly, it's like once you've had at least one blackout where you become viciously violent and angry and harass the people you love, that should probably be a sign that you should stop drinking. But I loved the drink too much where I was like, well, I only had it once, so it's fine. And I continued to go down that path. I moved to New York City in 2019, and there I really started to fully get into my addiction and my alcoholism. I was going to acting school at the time, and I remember I didn't know how to feel okay. I would be going to acting school and I'd be working so hard and I'd be grinding so hard, and then I'd come home and I'd have so much homework to do on my plate, but I didn't want to do it. But if I didn't drink, then I didn't know how to be okay with not doing it. Like I didn't know how to be okay with myself without putting alcohol in my body. So it became this kind of survival mechanism for me where it's like I just walked around feeling awful about myself until I could get home and drink until I was happy and passed out. And then COVID hit. And that's when things really started to become challenging. I was living in New York at the beginning of the pandemic, and I remember my roommates and I mean, we all started to drink more because it was COVID, and so we were like, it's fine, it's normal. But then after about the first month, I became the person that was like, I'll Uber Eats the alcohol. So they could get their big wine bottle, and then I could get 2/5 along with it to sneak in my room while they just got to see the wine. And so that became my nightly routine, and it was just getting worse and worse until, it was time for me to go and visit my family. And they knew that something was up. They saw that I wasn't doing well physically. They saw I wasn't doing well emotionally. Still, I did not want to call myself an alcoholic. So I was going out and I was hanging out with my friends and drinking, continuing to have blackouts. And I just didn't want to stop. I didn't want to admit I was an alcoholic. I was fine admitting that I had depression. I was fine admitting that I had anxiety, but I did not want to give up that feeling of freedom that alcohol gave me. And I just think my family and my higher power and the program that I was in so much that put me in my first residential treatment program late 2020. And that was really the first time where I was in a confined space and I really got to realize how much this disease had taken over. Because like when you're drinking all the time, you don't really notice that they're cravings. You're just like, that's my normal. And then I was sitting alone in residential treatment and my mind was going to these crazy places to try and figure out how to drink. I was like, maybe I can just run out in the middle of the night and then I can find somebody and they can buy me some alcohol and I'll drink on the beach for a bit and then I'll run back and nobody will notice. And it's just like the insanity of this disease. And that was like the first time where I was like, wow, this is insane. This is uncontrollable. And so that was really the first time that I came to the grips that I was an alcoholic. But that was late 2020, and now we're in late 2023, and I still only have 8 days today.
Right.
Because there was this part of me, especially at the beginning, that desperately wanted to be one of those functioning alcoholics. Like, I could hear about them, and there's people that come into the program and they don't have to come into the program until much later in their lives. And I hear about their stories, how they were able to hide it. And again, this is such messed up thinking, where I was like, God, I want to do that. I want to be that person that can just live with alcoholism and pretend like everything is fine so I can continue to drink. But my alcoholism is so much on the binging spectrum that it has become abundantly apparent that I cannot drink safely. I black out pretty easily. And, once you're blacked out, you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be crying Erin. I don't know if it's going to be mean Erin. I don't know if she's going to try and drive. I don't know what she's going to do. And yet I still continue to think that I could drink and control it. This last time with me getting sober, last year around this time, I really knew how intense and bad my alcoholism was. I guess I'm an actor, and so I got one of my first big acting jobs working on the TV set as a stand-in. And as a stand-in, what you do is you come in super early in the morning, you stand, and they put all the lights and the sound and stuff up, and then you leave, and then the real actor comes in. And so this was my job, 12 hours a day, 5, 6, maybe even 7 days a week. And it was outside in October. And it became pretty quick that I ran to alcohol to help soothe me in that set, because it was not fun and I was not happy with where I was at. And so I just said, fuck it. And I drank. And that was when the yets really started to come. I mean, I fucked up a lot already. The blackouts, maybe not a nice person. But this was the first time that I drank while I was on the job. This was the first time that I really drove really intoxicated. It was, gosh, I was so extremely hungover during set that I would have to call out sick. And I was hiding it from everybody. I was just saying that my migraines were acting up. And then the final straw, which I think is what Lupita was talking about, because she introduced me the other day when we were together, and she was like, and this is Erin. She drove into a swamp once, and that was the only introduction that I needed. I was on location, on set in North Bend, and I decided to pick up just a little tiny, one of those half bottles of wine. It's not a full bottle. It was a little tiny one. I was like, yeah, that'll be fine. I drank all that within probably about 15 minutes. And then I was like, you know what? I want more. So I went out to a store down the street. This was the first time. Drove successfully, no ditches there. And was able to pick up a full bottle of wine. Came back, drank all of that. Probably within another 15 minutes. Took out my contacts. I am blind as fudge. I took out my contacts. I was fully in my pajamas. And my drunk ass, who again was in a blackout, was like, let's go drive and get some more alcohol. And so I got in my car and I somehow landed in a swamp ditch. It was pouring down rain. I was down in the swamp ditch. I thank my higher power every single day for getting me home safely that night.
Wow, yeah.
The cops came. They did not arrest me. I guess some elderly woman came and they tried to help me, and they weren't there once my parents came and grabbed me. The car was trashed. We couldn't get AAA out there for another 24 hours, so that car was gone. And I had to really look at myself and go, fuck, I need help again. So that was when I really came to grips with like, I need to have my whole life surrounded in recovery in order for me to live. Not just to live a happy life, but just to fudging live. And so that was the time that I really started to put my sobriety first. And I went into residential, and then I did PHP, immediately moved into Oxford. I'm looking at what the time.
You got 5 minutes.
I got 5 minutes. Okay. And still this disease got me. Like still, even when I got out of residential that time, knowing full well that I was an alcoholic and I was going to die if I didn't stop drinking, I still Uber Eats vanilla extract while I was an outpatient and drank 3 bottles that night. And I thought I was going to, like, it's so fucking, like, crazy at the time where you, like, your alcoholic brain goes, like, you can get away with it. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But then the next day, it's like, you know, a belly full of alcohol and a head full of AA. First thing that I did is I blabbed to the first person I saw. Like, I couldn't live with the guilt and the shame of having that. And so, yeah, it just baffles my mind how cunning, baffling, and powerful my active addict is. So that was my last drink for 8 months. I got a sponsor that day. I moved into Oxford that day. And I continued to go to my outpatient program every single day that day, including meetings. I surrounded myself in recovery, and that is the only way that I got through those 8 months. You know, because I put myself in a situation where everything in my life revolved around my sobriety, and that was what kept me sober. I became chapter head at my Oxford chapter. I did alternate GSR at LCYP. I surrounded myself with recovery 24/7. I made it so if I drank, I would lose everything that I was doing. But then life started to happen. I got into a play, and it was so exciting and it was so wonderful. But that was the first thing that took me away from my recovery. And, you know, I started to resent AA. I didn't want to go to meetings, and the meetings I went to, I started to look at all of the people that annoyed me instead of all the people that brought me joy. You know, it's like I started looking at the differences instead of the similarities, and I wound up maybe making a meeting a week. And I'm at 1:03. Okay. And so, yeah, the first thing that you put ahead of your recovery is the first thing you lose or something like that. And it's funny because I didn't lose it because of my drinking, but I do think my higher power was looking out for me by having it being taken away. My director suffered a very bad mental collapse a couple of weeks ago, and she's still in recovery from that. And from that, I lost probably the biggest opportunity for my career in my life. It was crushing. But the thing is that when it happened, because I was already back on track to be here and be sober, it didn't hit me that hard. Because I just knew that, you know, this type of stuff happens for a reason. And if this project ended so I can put myself around my recovery, and so I can figure out how to live my life with recovery coming first instead of coming second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth, then it's worth it, because my life is worth it over anything else. So I'll end it there. Thank you.